You've tuned in to the Top 10 Garden Show with garden expert Ken Lain. Join the conversation daily as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Or visit face-to-face throughout the week where he can be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So every month, the Waters Garden Center team, we get together as a management team and we put together or curate a list of companion plants appropriate for that month. They look their best in that month. So January, we've got our companion plants of January. And we try to get a big thing. So a tree, a couple of them, a shrub, so some smaller shrubs. Sometimes we'll put a perennial in there, but basically these are the landscape plants you'd want in your yard, and they just shine. This is the time when they all look good together. So if you put them all in the front yard, they would just go, oh, those go together. They've got some style and some design sense. And so I thought I would share what this month we came up with. And it starts with the number one selling native plant. Is that right? It's close to it. I think it is because it's a screening plant. It's big. It grows 25 feet tall, 12 feet wide. It's a native that grows throughout the region. It's called an Arizona cypress. This is a big evergreen. It kind of looks like a juniper, but it's not. It doesn't have the same pollen, that kind of stuff. Instead of a berry, it puts on little tiny pine cones, kind of cute. So Arizona cypress, the fastest growing of the really thick, screening wind breaks. We use it often. Loves crummy soil, takes our dryness. It loves growing here. A companion to that, it's a cousin of the ponderosa pine. This is a gigantic pine tree, but this is a little bit smaller. Austrian pine is the cousin in Europe of a ponderosa pine, only it's much more shapely. Same kind of long needle, same green, thick green needle to it. So Arizona cypress more blue. This is a green that kind of contrasts, thus companions. It gets up to about 35 feet tall and about 15 feet wide. Again, pine trees, central leader to it. The beauty with the Austrian over ponderosa is it holds its foliage right down to the ground. So it's much more shapely. Whereas ponderosas, basically their bottom branches are always dying out. They're always self-pruning themselves up. So eventually you just end up with a trunk in the yard that's up about 100 feet tall. You just don't even see the foliage. So Austrian pines, it's much more shapely. For a landscape, it looks much better. For smaller yards, much better choice than a ponderosa. A companion that goes with that is a Japanese yew. This is an evergreen conifer. Again, we've done 3 conifers in a row. So Arizona cypress is a conifer, an evergreen with the needles. Austrian pine is that way. And then Japanese yew is actually, a lot of folks think of that as a shrub, but it's actually a conifer. So there's 2 types. There's a real tall one. So yew is, it's called Hicks yew. It gets up a couple stories tall, but not very wide, so maybe 6 feet wide. And then there's spreading yew. So if you need more of a shrubby kind of thing around that back patio, you want something green, you want to be able to hedge it up and it kind of looks good together. Yews are more of a shade lover, so they'll take some sun, but in the peak of June, they don't want to be out there in the middle of the day. They want to be more protected. So on the east side of the house, the north side, this is where you use Japanese yews. If you want something just like that out in full blistering hot sun and just hot as can be, wind, just terrible soil, mint julep junipers. Again, it looks good together. Mint julep has this minty green to it, and it's not a pollen producer. So we've bred that out of that plant. We only sell the female junipers, so they don't produce pollen like the males do. So this is a very good looking, very rich, healthy Kelly green to it. Gets up about head high, likes to be hedged, fast grower, great companion plant with this. A companion that looks really good right next to that, red clusterberry cotoneaster. Now, cotoneaster, there's a lot of varieties, but red clusterberry, this is the big one. It gets up easily 10 by 10 by 10. Gets red berries, has a kind of a really rich, deep, like hunter green color foliage to it, a bright flower in spring with this bright white flower, and each of the flowers turns into a red berry. So it's kind of got all the seasons going for it. So it's really good. And it goes really well with all these other January companion plants with each other. And lastly, I'll leave it with the number one seller in the country by far, mainly in the East Coast, but it does really well here too. Boxwood. And again, boxwoods, this is a huge family of plants, but the one that really outshines the rest is winter gem boxwoods. It's a plant up about hip high. You could easily hedge them. So you could have that walkway going up to your front door. They look really good with boxwoods out there, out in a container, out by the pool. It's not trashy. It looks green all the time. It's shapely. It just outshines a lot of the other ones. So winter gem boxwoods. So again, the companions, there's 6 of them of January, going to be Arizona cypress, Austrian pine, yews or Japanese yews, mint julep, cotoneaster, red clusterberry cotoneaster, and winter gem boxwoods. And all can be planted now. You'll find them all at your garden center right now. But we got to go to a break. Be right back after this. Not everyone can grow wildflowers, but we'll make sure you're not one of them.
At Waters, we know which wildflowers sprout, thrive, and bloom with success.
We're wild about wildflowers with many of our own Arizona blends.
Like our Arizona native mix, butterfly and hummingbird mixes, and all are big, bold, and beautiful.
At Waters, we know wildflowers, and winter's a season to spread new seed.
Waters Garden Center, where people who love their flowers wild, they love to shop for seed.
The Top 10 Gardener, your source for timely garden advice, seasonally correct for the garden, guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.